Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're so glad to welcome you as part of our community tonight. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and distributed live stream. By entering this virtual meeting room, you give your consent to be recorded and distributed by Vienna Live with Simeon Moore and other third parties. If you prefer to not be recorded and distributed live stream, you can go to the LinkedIn Live video feed, the link to which I've just placed in the chat room. Tonight, our featured guest is jazz pianist and composer Renee Rosnes, whose new album, Crossing Paths, will be the subject of tonight's conversation. Welcome, Renee.
Hello.
Renee, so tell us a little bit about where you come from, how your musical tastes were formed, and why you decided to become a professional jazz pianist.
Oh, well, there's a lot to unpack there. I was born in the prairies in Canada, in Saskatchewan, but I grew up in Vancouver, in British Columbia on the West Coast. And my parents were music lovers, though not musicians themselves. I had two older sisters, and we all started with piano lessons at a very early age. I began at age 3, and I also took violin lessons starting at age 5, and was a member of the Vancouver Youth Orchestra as well, which I just loved. I wasn't introduced to jazz until I got into high school by a great band director who was very knowledgeable and passionate about the music. I was lucky to have him, and I really credit him with getting me or introducing me to the music. After high school, I'm jumping along quickly here. I went to the University of Toronto. I was a classical student there in the performance program as a pianist. And it was during that time there that I realized that really my passion lay in playing jazz. I loved improvising. I loved the community of playing with other musicians and having musical conversations with people. So I realized that that's really what I wanted to do with my life and pursue that music. Shortly after that, I went back to Vancouver for a few years and began to work around town. And after that, I came to New York. I was granted a Arts Canada Council of the Arts scholarship grant to come to New York. And once I was here, I just fell in love with the scene and was so excited to meet so many like-minded musicians who were in my age group. And I just felt like I could really flourish here. And it wasn't long after I came, which was in the mid 80s, it was about the end of 85, that I began to work, not only with younger people, but I was hired by Joe Henderson, I would say would be my first big break, and toured Europe with him. And after that followed Wayne Shorter and J.J. Johnson, James Moody, Bobby Hutcherson, Buster Williams, and I was a member of the SF Jazz Collective for many years. I was a member of the Carnegie Hall Jazz Band, led by John Faddis. And I began to make my own albums starting in 1990. So I hope that wasn't too long of an answer, but that's that's kind of how I got started.
And when you tell us about this classical music, it seems like you were really steeped in classical music, but then for pianists, I don't think it doesn't seem that common that you would go into jazz. How did you, was it, you were introduced to jazz through your parents, or how was it that you
No,
made that kind of transition?
it was my high school band director, Mr. Rebliati, whom I'm still in touch with. And I credit him with turning me on to the music and encouraging me. And he noticed that I had a gift for hearing and improvising, and he just really encouraged that. So I was very lucky to have somebody like that in my life.
In those conversations, you said that was when you'd have a musical conversation, you couldn't do that same conversation accompanying a violinist in a Beethoven sonata.
Oh, well, no, I wouldn't. I mean, chamber music is fantastic too. And there's, of course, there's a lot of communication there. But with the tool of, or not tool, but the improvisation, that's really where I felt I could spread my wings, and I really felt at home communicating in terms of spontaneously improvising with people, which is I think the big thing that made me and plus the rhythms, the harmony, the melodies, there were so many aspects throughout the history of the music that I was learning about, and everything just, it just was I felt like a sponge just taking it all in, and I'm still learning, I'm still studying, and that will never end.
Okay, let's listen then to another musical conversation, and this is Casa Forci. what a conversation. So tell us, Renee, about Crossing Paths. Tell us about the idea behind this album, why you decided to make it now.
Well, first, I'd just like to talk about the song you just heard, which was written by the great Edu Lobo. And not only is he a fantastic composer, but he was singing on that track as well. Castle Forge was this name of the neighborhood that his parents grew up in Recife in Brazil. But getting back to your question, I've always loved Brazilian music. I discovered it in my teens, and I'd been dreaming about making an album such as this for probably 3 decades or so. So I figured time's running out. I better get to it and make this album. So there's just so much passion in the music. I love the melodies are so unique, the harmonies and all the different rhythms. I'm learning a lot about it as I go along. But this was a dream come true to finally make this album.
And tell us about the next track. This is Frevo.
Frevo. That was composed by Egberto Gismonti. And his music is, for those of you who might not know about him, he's an incredible composer and multi-instrumentalist and kind of a genre bending, I would say, artist. His music is very unique, and it has such an original sound because it incorporates so many different elements, and much of it is full of energy, as this piece is. There's a kind of physicality and an athleticism to a lot of his music, and I think you can hear it on this song. And actually, the title Frevo means in Spanish it means to boil, and I think you can hear the flavor of that in this melody.
Let's have a listen. Renee, yes, definitely. That's boiling. So tell us about this all-star cast of musicians. I mean, you produced this album. It's got your name on it, but this was the first actual solo we really heard, where we could tell, oh, that's Renee playing. And then right away, just a few measures later, you switch with the guitar. Tell us about this all-star cast of musicians and what you look for in a musician, how you know, yeah, I want that musician to be on this album that I've been waiting to make for 30 years.
Yeah. Well, it was important to me to have players who I feel a connection with musically, and also people whom I love and respect, and people who respect the Brazilian musical traditions and love that music as well. So really, I thought about how I wanted to arrange each piece with regards to the instruments I wanted to use, and then I just gave thought to who which players would best fit in the sounds that I heard in my head. On that last piece, you heard my dear friend Shelley Brown playing the flute so masterfully. And she and I were roommates at the University of Toronto. She's actually a classical flautist who plays in the opera orchestra and the National Ballet of Canada. And so I brought her in to play the piece because I knew that she would just uh, play it so well. So, and then of course we have John Patitucci on bass, Chico Pinheiro, great Brazilian guitarist and singer and composer as well. Chris Potter on saxophone, um, Steve Davis on trombone, Maucha Adnet singing two beautiful Jobim pieces. And Maucha was a member of Jobim's group Banda Nova. For 10 years, she performed with him. So it was important to me to have Maucha come and sing a couple of Jobim pieces, I should say. She sings Caminhos Cruzados and she sings Canta Canta Mais. Very beautiful. Um, and did I leave anyone out? I can't think. Chris Potter's on saxophone. Did I mention him? Uh, Rogério Boccato on percussion and Adam Cruz on the drums.
And when you think about, is there anyone in particular when you think about, again, you started by saying that the conversation is so important to you, the musical conversation. Um, what do you appreciate most about a musician? Is it how they play certain scales, or is it what is it that what do you value?
Yeah, it's definitely not that what you just said. It's more about the feeling that they play with, the groove that they play with, their ability to listen, their ability to play with empathy, play with dynamics, the way they orchestrate. And all of these musicians on this album are all masterful at all of those skills. Playing in balance and understanding about blending and understanding the arc of a piece and how it needs to grow and what is the main point or the climax, I should say, of the composition. All of these things play a role and in creating a successful recording. And every single musician on this album just was, has such creativity and skill. And they're all really nice people too, which is important to me.
And what happens, so I imagine because they are all such consummate professionals, they have very strong opinions. How do you resolve conflicts? What if one of them says, no, no, the arc goes to there, and you're saying, no, 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 the arc comes earlier.
There are no conflicts, and I'm not saying that lightly. I mean, there were no conflicts within this session. I mean, everybody respects everyone, and I certainly not being a native Brazilian musician, I deferred many times to Chico's or Rogerio's guidance, very happily so. So it's about working together as a unit, and everyone in this particular group, respected one another. And if suggestions came up that weren't mine, I was happy to hear them. And if I felt that they were, the right thing to pursue, then we just did that. And I can't think of an instance where I didn't think that it was the right way to go.
Okay, I want to be part of that group. They sound like they really get along well. Tell us now, before we listen to our next track, tell us what we're going to hear. This is Essa Muller.
Essa Mulher. Yes, this is Joyce Moreno. And actually Joyce is a well, she's a iconic Brazilian star, vocalist and composer. And 26 years ago, she invited me to perform the same piece, along with some other pieces, on an album of hers called Astronauta, which was the songs of Elise, referring to Elise Regina. And so I actually recorded this very piece with her many, many years ago. And so I was it's a gorgeous composition, and I was ecstatic that she agreed to come and record it with me this time. The song itself is quite interesting. It's about a woman going through all the different roles she plays within a day, a mother, a maid, an organizer, a cook, a lover. All these topics are dealt with within the lyric. So it's quite a moving story. And Rogério, the percussionist on this album, he shared with me that Joyce was the first Brazilian woman to really sing about women's issues. So
Let's have a
this here
listen.
is Essa Mulher.
De manhã cedo, essa senhora se conforma, bota a mesa, tira o pó, lava a roupa, seca os olhos. Ah, como essa santa não se esquece de pedir pelas mulheres, pelos filhos, pelo pão. Depois sorri, meio sem graça, e abraça aquele homem, aquele mundo que a faz assim feliz. De tardezinha, essa menina se namora, se enfeita, se decora, sabe tudo, não faz mal. Ah, como essa coisa é tão bonita, ser cantora, ser artista, isso tudo é muito bom. E chora tanto de prazer e de agonia, de algum dia, qualquer dia, entender de ser feliz.
So this brings us to our philosophical portion of the conversation that I know everyone looks forward to every week. And the title is Sunshine or Saudade. Renee, in the liner notes to Crossing Paths, they tell the story of your career-long affinity with Brazilian music and quote you as saying, The realization of this album was truly a dream fulfilled. I chose both the musicians and the repertoire with great care. Many of the songs reflect the powerful stories of heartbreak, pain, hope, and longing. In Portuguese, the word that refers to the latter is saudade. So we just heard essa mulher, translated from Portuguese as that woman, this woman, and that could, of course, as you said about women's issues, also refer to you. So since you are the subject of this conversation, tell us what saudade means to you, who grew up in the prairies and then have gone everywhere around the world since then. What does this mean? What saudade mean to you? How do you translate it? And tell us the story of saudade from your life.
Well, as you said, the word means it's a feeling of longing or melancholy, nostalgia. And I think all of us can relate to those feelings when we miss somebody, or when we miss someone who's no longer here. Or I know that for myself, I have saudade for British Columbia and where I grew up. I miss the woods, I miss the ocean, I miss that smelling that air, that Pacific Ocean air, walking on the beach. So I think all of us can relate to that word and that feeling of longing.
Okay, tell us about this next song. So this is Trios Urbanos.
Well, that translates to the title translates to the tracks of the city. It's a song that Caetano Veloso wrote. It's a quite popular song in Brazil. I know that when he performs it around the world, audiences will just join in and sing along with him. Everybody knows the words. I love that about the Brazilian performance tradition. I've seen it. I've witnessed it and been part of it several times in my life, where the whole audience just bursts out into song and welcomed by the performer. In any case, this song is he's reminiscing about all the stops that the streetcar made along the tracks. So it's kind of like a city. He's thinking about the old days and the cityscape of his childhood. That's what this song is about.
Okay, here it is. Trios Urbanos. So our last question for the evening, Renee, is what do you wish all of us who listen to this album, what would you like us to take away from it?
I guess a sense of joy, of happiness, maybe a few moments to forget about all the troubles of the world and just immerse yourself in the sounds of Brazil. That's I think that I take away from it when I listen to it. I'm just enjoying all the grooves and the beautiful way that everyone was playing together.
Okay, let's see how we can how we can get the album. It's at smokesessionrecords.com. And that's easy enough we can purchase it right there. It's available on all the major streaming platforms. You can buy it, again, I'll put this in the chat room. There it is, smokesessionrecords.com. The name of the album is Crossing Paths by Renee Rosnes. And to stay in touch with you, Renee, we can just go to reneerosnes.com, and people can reach out to you if they have any questions or comments under contact.
Yes.
Perfect. And we have your upcoming shows, fantastic, in Burlington, Vermont, and Tarrytown, New York, Village Vanguard. So reach out, check out Renee's website, reneerosnes.com, and reach out to her if you have any questions or comments. Thank you so very much to Renee Rosnes.
Thank you for having me, Simeon. Pleasure to be here.
And we can always find information about upcoming shows on Vienna Live about at the website simeonmora.com. And while you're at it, you can also put in your email there and sign up for the weekly updates that I send out on Fridays to greet people and to give people exclusive insights into the upcoming shows. All information, as always, can be found at www.simeonmora.com. Once again, thank you so very much to Renee Rosnes. Thank you to Vienna Live sponsors, Victoria and Frederick Mulligan. Thank you to Abby Moser, Agnieszka and Benoit Rivolet and Mary Schlesinger for their support of this show. Thanks to my cousin Mike, a marketer from Layer App. If you're an architect or an engineer, they have a really cool tool you should check out. Thanks most of all to you, our participants, who make it all worthwhile. From New York City, New York, and Washington, D.C., goodbye, and see you next Wednesday.